For the next 1 hour, we are going to talk about waste management. Taka. You're going to have a taka conversation. Okay, so what do we do with the waste that we produce? Because every day you're producing waste in very many ways. And then you basically just call it waste because you do not want to deal with it thereafter. You throw it away. Somebody collects it. Where does it go? Is it an environmental issue? Oh, yes, it is. But can waste make money? We hear that it does. And that's why we are joined by Richard Kainika, who is the Secretary General of the Kenya Association of Waste Recyclers. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you.
Karibu sana. You'll soon be joined by John Odongo, who is the CEO of the Kenya Extended Producer Responsibility Organization. You're here for us to have a conversation about filling the knowledge gap in sustainable waste management practices, just getting to understand hii takataka. How can you convert it into reusable stuff and money out of it? But to welcome you to the conversation, City has the day's proverb. This week, the proverbs are from
Ghana.
Okay, and you told us the president is called?
President is a very interesting fellow. He's actually called Nana Akufo-Addo.
Okay.
Yes, he recently appointed a new minister for finance. See, they've been in some financial doldrums. I assume this gentleman has been appointed to sort out these problems.
This will be in our dream team.
Well, that is after Parliament approves his appointment.
Nice.
Right? Okay. It is the human being that matters. As I said, this problem, I said this proverb, the problem. I said there are 2 sentences. Sorry, 3. Okay.
Sentence number 1.
It is the human being that matters.
Full stop.
Okay. I call gold, it does not answer.
Full stop.
I call cloth, it does not answer.
Full stop.
3.
It is the human being that counts.
Those are 4.
Right.
I said 3.
You said 3.
It's always good to give a bonus.
The other one is a chorus.
Yes. Pambio.
It's a Pambio. Richard, when you hear this proverb from Ghana, what's your interpretation of it?
Well, it's the human being that matter. From where I sit, I think human beings are waste generators. Cloth and gold does not generate waste. And waste is resource. Waste is raw material. In this time and age, waste is a serious resource. Yes.
That's nice. Perspective.
For everything.
It's everything, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is everything.
It is human beings. That
Those are the
create
ones
waste.
that matter.
Yes, cloth doesn't create waste.
Neither does gold.
Gold, sorry. It does not. Gold, no. Definitely not.
It doesn't.
But human beings,
Yeah.
beware of these creatures.
So then, Richard, please introduce us to the Kenya Association of Waste Recyclers. Who are they?
Thank you. The Kenya Association of Waste Recyclers is a business membership organization that registers private sector industry that is involved in extraction of value from waste. Now, the use of the word recyclers in this context is by the virtue of the fact that the whole process, the whole value chain involves reclaiming of the waste values all the way to conversion of the same into finished products. That is what we find in the marketplace. Oftentimes, unless you are very skilled or very aware, you may not notice some of the finished products that we have in the market are derived from the recycling activity. So then the association registers all those people who are involved, from people who collect waste on the roadsides, people who run private corporate entities in regards allowed collection of waste, all the way to those who process, those who do value addition, and finally to those people who convert these fractions into finished products. So all of them are described as recyclers.
How many members do you have so far?
We have 3 categories of members. So we have members who actually enterprise in waste management activities. So currently we have 400, the last time I checked, 400 and below 417. We also have other members who operate at the very low tiers. This would be the first category of our members would be waste pickers. We have 3 categories of waste pickers. We have the people you see walking around with bags on their back, which most people think those are entirely the waste pickers, yes, or scavengers if you like. We like to call them reclaimers because they play a very significant role in our value chain. Then we also have groups of young people. We encourage this very much, especially young people who are not engaged in any economic activities, who come together and work within their community towards providing the basic waste management activities. This would be like collecting in the informal settlements, putting waste together, and then they also do some other activities like composting, rearing poultry or livestock using these waste fractions. Then finally, we also have private service providers. These are corporate entities, properly registered companies, and they are providing these waste services within our community. So those are the waste pickers from my description.
Those are just the pickers.
Those are just the pickers.
The groups, the youth groups, the individuals who walk around picking, collecting
and the
garbage.
private service providers.
And the private ones, those ones that are licensed by City Hall.
Yes.
And other county entities.
Yes.
Well, you'll get some water shortly.
Sorry.
Paul is Anna. So those are the ones. And then you said that's the second category of membership.
Yes.
Category number 3.
Yes. Category number 3 are those very, very important value chain as well, because these people, you'll find that they are the category that that monetize the value chain. These are micro enterprises that most times you find them operating in load sides and small, very, very small entities. What they do is that they take the weight of the mixed fractions that are brought by these collectors and waste pickers, and then they pay. They convert now the collected fractions into money. So they use the kilo unit as the basis for transaction. So these people, you'll find them playing the role of the intermediaries between those people who find value of waste on the load sides or wherever from their bins, and then those who now actualize the value in the waste. These would be now the third tier, the people who process, the people who entirely enterprise in specific types of value of waste.
So these are like the aggregators.
The aggregators.
They bring in from the various sources, they sort it, and then now they sell.
Yes.
To the ones who are going.
All type of waste that make financial sense, they buy, as long as it sells. So they buy to sell. So we call them the aggregators.
Okay.
Yes, they are the second tier.
Okay. And in total, 417.
Yeah, okay. So, yes. So, what I wanted to say is that the kind of membership we have within the value chain, as you go up, you formalize. As you go down, you get informal.
You informalize.
You lack structures. So, as you move toward the center, then you find there is some formality.
Yes.
Most aggregators are not as formal, but at least they have names. Quite different from the waste pickers, who sometimes don't need even to have names. I mean, you know them, especially we call them the waste pickers, the scavengers. But as you move up, then you find the aggregators. An aggregator will find a person, an ordinary person, having enterprised, is able to buy the whole day, segregate, and probably sell after 1 week. So there is an issue of business structures, like we bought mixed total of 300 kilograms. We were able to segregate into metals, plastics, sometimes food waste, and then they are able also to connect with the upper tier, which is now the specialized processors. Now, these specialized processors would come to the aggregator and correct the specific material fractions that they process.
Right.
So this would be somebody who does plastics, for instance, somebody who does metals, like scrap metal dealers, some people who are doing paper, used food, sometimes bones. So all these, they come to the aggregator to correct their fractions.
There's one aggregator that's just behind the Standard Group.
Yeah.
Big business. Several counters parked there every day. Now, James Odongo, the CEO of the Kenya Extended Producer Responsibility Organization, has joined us as well. James, good morning.
Good morning, Latif. How are you?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Good to have you back in the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes.
This Extended Producer Responsibility Organization, what is
Yes.
it and what do you do?
Okay. So thank you first for, of course, granting us this opportunity. I think the conversation is quite critical during this time. It's good that it's happening when, for the first time in Nairobi, people are discarding their blankets. I think it's almost historical. The temperatures are rising, and so it would be stupid for us to assume that we can't have that discourse around what is our collective action around climate change and what effort can we do at an individual level to be able to really streamline the activities around climate change mitigation and adaptation. So in terms of the Kenya Extended Producer Responsibility Organization, a bit of history. Remember back in 2017, there was a ban of the single-use plastic carrier bags, and that prompted a conversation because there was an increasing appetite by the Kenyan government and of course the enforcement agencies to ban material fractions or packaging materials that were deemed to be stubborn to the environment. So based on that, there was need for a conversation spearheaded by the private sector. Of course, recognizing that you can't ban products into perpetuity, just that considering they, of course, ordinarily address a pent-up demand or a need in the society. So through the Kenya Association of Manufacturers and other private sector actors, a conversation was started where it was agreed that producers must take charge, support the government efforts in terms of realization of a clean and healthy environment. And so the concerted efforts culminated in this adaptation, or rather coalescing around of private sector and the government in a document we are calling the Kenya Plastic Action Plan that was in 2019. And this was sort of giving credence to the need for implementation of extended producer responsibility in the country. So KEPRO came in 2021 as a first multi-material producer responsibility organization as a voluntary scheme, where the idea was producers are coming in to support and inject some money into the environment just for us to be able to reclaim their material fractions. So we've been doing that since 2021. Then, based on the experiences from the private sector and the authority here in the National Environment Management Authority, they noticed there was a need for this to be a mandatory requirement because we were having free riders in the ecosystem who were only either piggy banking or leveraging on what others were doing and claiming that they were doing something. So that needed to be embedded in law. So that is when the National Sustainable Waste Management Act came into place. It was enacted in 2022 and now gives it weight in terms of it being a mandatory requirement. So Section 13 of the Act makes it mandatory for all producers introducing any product into the Kenyan market to institute mandatory extended producer responsibility requirements. So just to try and break it into a simple analogy, we are the Robin Hoods of the society, where we are collecting from quote-unquote the rich, herein the producers,
Right.
and trying to cascade down the money or the resources down to the levels of our community to be able to retrieve as much amounts of waste as we can based on the available resources that we'll have received from our members.
So then you support the private sector enterprises
Yes.
that are now members of Richard's association
Yes.
to establish business
Exactly.
and to structure their businesses.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so what do you take? Okay, let me ask you from this side is that what do you give? What do you collect? What are folks collecting? Or are we saying that everything that is deemed to be trash or rubbish can be picked up and then sent for recycling or reconstituting? Or are there levels whereby you say, okay, well, this is what we will take and this is what we can then pass on to businesses?
Thank you. You realize that this industry is run by, it's a business. It is, okay, before this, what my colleague described, before the policy came in place, recycling existed. So what is going to happen now is that now when we work together with through the EPR regulations and the policy, then there will be requirement for specific materials to be collected. You find that our industry is learning on demand, right? The normal market dynamics, whereby if you want a particular fraction, then I will provide. Let's say, for instance, you are a producer or you are a recycler, and I'm a waste picker or a collector. Then you tell me I want scrap aluminum, for instance. Then I get the scrap aluminum for you as a industrial input, and then you pay me. But now this course that we are starting now with the PLOs like KEPRO is that we are finding that now the law requires that every producer will take responsibility for the fractions that emanate from the product that they bring into the market. So what we expect and what is already happening now is that the producer will be coming to work with the recyclers so that we correct all of them. All the fractions, all the waste that we are finding. And then, of course, we will be agreeing on where do we take this waste. In the instance where, because we have some fractions that are unconventional in recycling, then we are directed to take it to the landfill. Some of them, like the hazardous waste, are supposed to be incinerated. So after collection, then where it goes is now a product of how we agree with the producers and the government.
Okay, so let's backtrack a little bit. So let me understand. So what is, because you talked about, from level, there are levels, obviously. You've got waste pickers and you've got, aggregators, you go across.
Processors.
So if we're at the level of the waste pickers, are they only picking up product from certain businesses, or is it across board? Like basically anybody who is then in the association can go around the city and pick up anything and then bring it to the aggregators? Or are we saying, because we're looking at cyclical business, and I think we had a conversation about this last year, that you produce and you go around the whole cycle, so that at the end of the day, whenever it's done away with, somebody is then taking it and bring it back to recycle, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, are we talking about specific products of those businesses that are in this cycle? Or are we talking about across board? If it's across board, I'd be really excited. But
is a scavenger picking everything?
Everything, and can
or is
bring
a
it to an
scavenger
aggregator.
Contracted to,
Or do you say
I
these
produce
people-
bottles,
Yeah.
plastic bottles. I hire scavengers to only go looking for plastic.
Or tin cans? Or are we saying only this thing? Or bring everything to the aggregators and the aggregators will sort? How does it work?
We are aspiring to get to that level of engagement whereby those people who are going around collecting waste will bring everything, especially now we have two types of waste. We have the wet waste, organic waste, dominantly, and we also have the non-organics, like what you talked about, the metals and the plastics and paper. So we are moving towards a place where all waste will be collected, taken to an MLF. An MLF will be a place where all waste will be taken from homes or from offices to an MLF. So whether it comes through a waste picker, whether it comes through a private service provider, the first point of call is at the MLF.
Okay.
Now at the MLF, then the waste fractions are separated. For those that are complicated or difficult to recycle, then the producers will take responsibility in terms of disposing them in line with the regulations.
Right.
For those that are easy to recycle, or the ones that are conventionally being recycled, then they begin now the cycle, going up, back to the market, and back again. And the act that he referred to, the Sustainable Waste Management Act, is principally geared towards promotion of green economy, and also the circular economy, whereby it is supposed to begin from the point of design. So that when a producer is thinking of packaging, for instance, milk, then they have to begin at, so what material are we going to use? What is going to happen at the point of death? I mean, we call it the grief, the post-consumer stage.
Right.
Once it is done with consumption, what happens at that point? Are we going to take it to the landfill, or can it find value backward into the industry?
Okay.
Yep.
That's interesting. So what percentage, if you look at the circular economy now, for those businesses who already are clicked in here, what percentage of what is produced then is already earmarked for recycling? So you go in knowing that we are making this milk pack or whatever, and we know that the paper at the end of the day will be used for 1, 2, 3. What percentage of that at this point are we talking about that is already
I
set
think
aside?
me trying to give a figure would be sort of trying to shoot my foot. We must realize that the Kenyan ecosystem has largely and predominantly been more of a linear economy, where we are focusing on production and by no intention or whatever, but almost deliberately focusing on production, consumption, and then disposal. So the intention of the new regulatory regime is that we are now going to realize a circular economy. So that means that we are starting at the very granular levels of ground up level, where we are starting to collect data, because that data is non-existent in terms of what is actually even being recycled. Focus was initially more on plastic, but now the EPR regulation is coming in and specifying all other material fractions. So you're looking at paper, aluminum, the difficult to recycle materials, these are the composites and the likes. So currently there is no factual data in terms of the reality as far as what is, to what levels are we circular. We are predominantly still a very linear economy, and that means we still don't have data in terms of the intention as far as design for recyclability and circularity is concerned. So presently there is no factual data. We only rely on some unverified or rather outdated data where we're saying our recycling rates are less than 15%.
So
And then
the data you rely on is almost predominantly anecdotal.
True. And worryingly so, based on the fact that what we have is actually more focusing a lot more on plastic.
Right.
We are not talking about these other material fractions that are also in the ecosystem.
It's interesting that
Yes.
we're using the word fractions to refer to waste.
I know.
Richard Kainika, the Secretary General of the Kenya Association of Waste Recyclers, and James Odongo, who's the CEO of the Kenya Extended Producer Responsibility Organization. We are talking about waste management and getting to understand then what do we do about it. So we hear from Richard that the association is busy and it's tiered from those who collect to those who sort to then those who deal with recycling and producing the final product. And that's big business, as I may hear.
Sure.
Now, James, does the new law talk about sorting waste at source? This is when we are producing waste. There's been this whole conversation of, divide, separate your waste in
Paper,
terms of paper, plastic, and the organics and
Yes,
blah.
yes.
Does the law mandate us to do that?
Yes.
It does?
It does, more particularly under Section 14, where we are being mandated to segregate our waste at source. I think the Act goes further to prescribe punitive measures. You stand to be fined up to, is it 20,000 Kenyan shillings
Who?
Yes.
per offense?
Who? Me
You
or
at an
the
individual level,
private
at
service
household level.
provider?
You-
At household level?
Yes. And it goes further to indicate that now the waste management service provider should also not take up your waste if it's mixed waste. Yes.
How exactly is there going to be provision for you to segregate this waste at source?
Okay. So the intention, and we need to realize that, yes, we still have the Act, but you're waiting for the gazettement of the regulations. But the provision is that NEMA will be providing color codes for the different bins that we'll be using. At the initial level, we're going to be having the wet waste, the dry waste, and then the hazardous waste in a separate bin. And then the same will be replicated in the transportation vehicles for the different wastes. So we must also be cognizant of the fact that it will take time. I know you want to ask that, how will it work? Yes,
No, I think we're clear on how it will work. I just
Yes.
want to understand a number of things here. Because if we're talking about something that's already law,
yes,
right?
Yes.
We're waiting for gazettement.
Of
But
regulations.
essentially,
yes,
it is law.
yes, it's
So
law.
the gazettement of the regulations, essentially, you want quote unquote as a formality.
True.
Because essentially what you're saying is now it has been made public. This is where it is going to be.
True.
The same argument that one Mr. Eric Latif always makes here, that you want me to throw waste in a garbage bin, but you've not provided the things for me to be able to do that. How is that going to work? Number one. Number two, we're talking about the categorization of waste, whereby you can have the bins. That's fine. You can even get these motorized trucks where it even separates a thing. That's very good.
Yes.
But in terms of awareness, in terms of communication to people, in terms of what they're supposed to be doing, I think that also then comes into play here. How will that also then be rolled out? I bet you my bottom dollar, even the folks that are collecting, and maybe you can speak to that, they're not doing it for anything more than commercial value that is being given to them at the end of the day. Yes, because you collect so much in terms of kgs, whatever, I don't know how it's done.
You sell it.
Or you will sell it, even if it's not yours. They're not doing it because of, I mean, and as callous as it sounds, it is really right now for the commercial value that's been given to them, is it not?
Yes.
You know, but here we're asking for a combination of factors. We want to make sure that we clean up the environment. We want to make sure that waste is managed properly, and that we can actually get into a recycling, system properly. And then we've gone ahead to make demands of communities for whom we've not shared information. Do we not see this as having gaps in it? Whether you'll gazette today or tomorrow, the old rickety things that would cause tetanus when you just look at it, that are collecting garbage, how is that going to then come into play as well?
True.
Okay.
So I think we are well aware of that. As an organization, we've been very deliberate on understanding what is actually the reality on the ground. So, and as you've said, the waste situation is a commercial engagement in our country. We can't shy away from that reality, and we must actually appreciate that narrative. That yes, we are actually starting to see a commercial sense to waste in our ecosystem. I think recently we saw it being estimated at around 54 billion USD.
What is 54 million USD?
Taka in Kenya.
In this country?
Yes.
That is the estimated value
of it of the waste ecosystem in Kenya.
54 billion.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got that one. It's a sixth of the SGR.
Yes.
I've got that one.
So
USD.
Yes.
Not shilling.
USD.
Yes.
Not shilling.
Not
God
shilling.
It's not a sixth, is it?
No.
Okay, now who estimated this?
It is
the Ande.
Is it UNIDO or ANDE?
Ande.
See, the reason why I asked the question, I like the estimate, but to assume that particular estimate has any bearing with reality, it means that they understand great details about waste in this country, isn't it? So the data that you said isn't available is available to some people, isn't it? Okay, now where do they get their data from?
So of course that is debatable, but we must be cognizant of the fact that some products are predominantly waste in terms of the ingredients. So paper is heavily recycled material, the rigid plastics and PET bottles. Some of course in Kenya we are yet to get to the points of food grade recycling, but there are certain material fractions that at the initial point of production you require.
Actually, where I'm going with this was this. If you have information, sometimes having data is all good and well, but it is not sufficient. How this data is analyzed, and how the product of that analysis is then used is sometimes of greater importance than the data itself. Because if right now you are doing what you're doing, but it's on the back of very many other efforts that have been made over the years with many environmental groups. I worked in Kisumu for a long time, in that region, and I did see of organizations who had gone as far as even providing these segregated bins for waste and so forth, and people had been trained within communities to do precisely that. I know because I engaged with some of these groups, and they were extremely well trained, and they knew what to do. And what was important, they also when I say community, it's like you go to Korogosho, that community. I'm not talking about north of the Nairobi River, I'm talking about south of it, okay? They were trained and they knew what to do. My concern is always this when we talk about things that need to be done and things which are important. Why is it that we don't make it mandatory that this is something that we teach our children? So that you have an entire generation of people who actually grow up knowing that this is how it's done. That it is not right for you to be in a vehicle and just toss things out. It is not right for you to look for the nearest wall to pee in if you're a man, okay? That it is not right for you to do the things we consider to be normal. Because even here, you'll find somebody eats and dumps something on that floor that you can see right there. That change cannot come about if this thing isn't taught from the earliest possible. Just like people understand 1 + 1, it's taught. If this is part and parcel of the curriculum so that it is taught, then all these efforts you're making, there'll be fruits now. But when these people's young Kenyans grow up, you will have the very thing that you want. But if it is not, this will be yet another wonderful effort, wonderful legislation, and we'll just get on with our nasty Kenyan environmental habits as we've done in the past.
Yeah, and sort of also responding to her queries is that based on the data that has been there over time, I think the unique thing about the current regulatory regime is that we are recognizing that the consumer is a primary stakeholder. So a lot more interventions need to be focused on the consumer. So this is where also KEPRO is coming in. And we are very deliberate. We recently launched the Consumer-Led Transformation Program, which is a multifaceted approach that will be targeting all the different aspects of, or rather sectors of within our community. So you're looking at interventions at school level. So we'll be running school innovation and recycling challenges, where we are trying to leverage on the pester power, where a kid in school has learned on the benefits of recycling and innovation. Then they're coming at home and influencing masses. At home, you see if your kid comes in and says, no, dad, mom, we need to do this, you sort of have to listen to them. So that is the intention we have from our schools.
Is it going to be taught in school?
Yes.
Because if you have a club,
yes,
there was a science club when you were in school. There was one which, when I went to school.
Yes.
Okay? I was not a member of the science club. Okay? But science was taught. But those who were in the science club, because science was taught, remember and recall very many things because it was taught. I remember certain things because it was taught. I'm a dog with a bone on this one.
You want it to be a subject
It has to be.
or a unit in a subject.
Yes, if it
civic.
is that important,
Yes.
it has to be taught.
yes,
It's actually in the Act, it is required to feature in the curriculum, waste management. And back to the question you asked about perhaps how fast is it for us to, do things the right way. Personally, my perspective is that Kenyans are generally a very compliant society. Sometimes it is easy for you to feel like we are very far from hitting the bullseye, so to speak. But I want you to consider the times when people used to smoke in the bus in Nairobi, those of us who were there those times.
Yep.
I mean, if you looked at it at that time, would you think that you could spend a whole day in the city without seeing somebody smoking a cigarette? Because now it happens. Yeah, I spent my 2 last days with somebody from the northern side of Africa. And I could see at some point he really wanted to take the puff, And I remember yesterday at some point in town, he literally had to light it up. And I was very worried because he's my guest for 2 days. And here he has the stick, it's smoking, he's in the city.
public.
James, let me ask you,
Yes.
mentally walk through the process of what was done in order for that to now be compliant. Just walk through the process.
It started at the policy point because I remember Honorable Ngiru, I think that time she was the health minister.
Yes.
It went through the policy, gazetted.
Yes.
Then the police swung in action.
You
The
get it.
issue of waste management has been left in the hands of the environment regulators, namely NEMA.
Yeah.
And the county governments.
Yep.
And I don't want to say they are weak, but we know that they are not properly manned.
I will say
If
it
this
for
was
you,
for you.
Richard.
Yeah.
They are weak. They are not weak because of weak structurally,
Yes.
but it's just weak in terms of weak not wanting to do things. And I want to come back, City. Our children know from us that it's wrong to throw away garbage.
Yes.
They know. We all know.
sure.
Right? But it's because, and I come back, I'm also dog with a bone on this one. If you don't provide the facilities, people will do it. If we had facilities where we had color-coded beans in our neighborhoods, and everybody knows, we all know,
It makes it
we
that
put
much easier
takataka in the house, not anywhere. We put takataka in the house in a bin,
Designated.
in that designated black juala that has been provided by the service provider.
Yes.
We all know. We tie it, we remove it on certain days because it's going to be collected.
We know all that.
We know, and we follow that. And even the children know. I finish, my takataka goes in
Absolutely.
there. They already, because they can see by example. If we had the color-coded things, we would do it. But you don't provide it, we'll not do it.
But have you checked?
Where?
I know you are not like myself.
Eh.
Or when you find the segregated bins, the color-coded bins, whatever, go and peep inside and see whether people are compliant.
You see,
That's the point,
It's
actually.
about awareness.
Yeah, that's
if
the
you have
awareness,
not,
yeah.
you've provided the color-coded bins there and you've written whatever.
Yes.
But then there's no awareness of, okay, so what exactly am I putting in the yellow one? What am I putting in the green one? So when you say, this is organic, tell me what is
So
organic.
right there,
Unataka mbegu, unataka
right
maganda ya
there,
maembe.
it's important for us to take note.
Yes.
As he said, we are
Yeah.
waiting for the national color coding scheme. It's supposed to come from NEMA. It's law. I mean, we don't know what we need to put in green today.
Yeah.
Okay.
You cannot take me to court because I did not segregate my waste today, technically
True.
speaking.
Absolutely.
So we are waiting for the scheme. And it was required by the act when it was enacted by the former president in July 2022. But to date, as we speak now, well, I'm not aware. We don't have that code.
I hear what you're saying. I do think that it's absolutely necessary to then have, and maybe you can speak to that, deliberate awareness about this. Because like you said, yes, I believe that there was a time where there were the coded dustbins, and if you were to go to it, everything went into everything, and it was all a mishmash of trash, right? But look at other jurisdictions whereby this happens around the world. It's not that they have two brains or two heads, but they were told this is exactly what needs to happen. This is where it is supposed to go. And it was consistent and it was over time. Until now, it's a no-brainer. Nobody even thinks. Just like the child who knows. I peel a banana, I'm in the house, I take the thing to the dustbin. It becomes second nature because it has been. I fear for a situation whereby the gazettement of those regulations will come out, and it'll come out with the big bag iron clanging of the law, and people will get in trouble for something that they've not been properly sensitized about. That's my fear.
And
I don't unfacilitated. I don't have a problem. Bring swanky, but do look. Which color do you want? Violet. Bring. No problem. But my fear is that people then now will get in trouble for something that they've not been sensitized consistently about. For me, if you know, because like we said, it's already law, I would say we don't have to wait. Why are there not conversations today already about this thing that is coming? And I think that's our problem. We wait until the thing has come tomorrow. Then we say, oh, by the way,
we need to feature this story.
And it would be far more effective if you had started talking about it. So when it's gazetted, people are dealing with something they've already been told about,
it.
they know about. It's
Guys,
not new.
I take a different view.
Please do.
Talking about it, we know takataka. We all do not want takataka.
Yeah.
What we should be having a conversation about now is Sakaja and his people in Nairobi, and Abdul Swamad and his people in Mombasa, and all these other urban areas and rural areas to start investing in those facilities. John Gakuo provided a place for you to go and smoke. When the law was now in effect, you knew, don't smoke anywhere. There's a designated smoking.
Yes, they even
There
put
was
a
a
bench.
law.
They even put a bench for you to
Put
sit.
benches for you to sit there. When John Gakuo told Askaris go and arrest people who were throwing takataka, he had worked on providing dustbins.
Infrastructure.
Facilitate. If we're talking about investment in all this, and then you say now the regulations from tomorrow do not. If I know there is a dustbin here and it's I've been told green is for maganda ya mandizi, I'll put maganda ya mandizi in the green. I have a brain.
So, okay.
I want to say here that, yes, our association, one of the very, very core objective is education and creation of awareness and public sensitization. But as an association, we've realized that it is almost impossible for us alone to do this. Public awareness is I think you guys are the masters, but we need to work together because we could bring the technical side.
Yeah.
You bring what you have. We need the church, the school, the police, the government. Every person should be involved, and every part of the society should come. We need to come together towards this because as long as we are alive, we are generating waste. At any given time, right now, From the moment I sat here, I'm generating waste through this package.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, for us as recyclers, when we engage with the industry, we want to get every package, every waste converting to a resource, a raw material, so to speak. When we go back to our homes, we want everything to be channeled to the bins. But the doing, the activity of getting there is very, very complicated. And it's for everyone. I think when we talk about this here, we also need to consider our society. We have 3 levels of society, so to speak. We have the very low, like those who live in the informal settlements. We have the middle level, and you have the upper level. We usually don't have a lot of problems with people living in the high income areas. But we have a serious problem with the low income areas for obvious reasons. Because these people, even if you were to provide bins for them, where would they put the bin? You know? Secondly, currently people are paying for waste collection. We know that the municipalities are no longer doing what they were doing those times. So some of these people are not even able to pay for the services. And I know of areas where residents are paying 20 shillings. So the person who receives the 20 shilling coin, really cannot transport that for more than 200 meters. So they put it in the hard cart, do one corner and dump it on the roadside. Because that is as far as that money can provide. Yes, they pay 20 shillings. So leave alone the bin, even where to put that waste, even if it was for free. Do we have that infrastructure in place?
Comes back to...
And that is how the waste finds itself in rivers, deliberately being put in the river.
I want to ask a question about safety of everybody who's working in this industry of yours, from those who collect to those who handle at the aggregation point to those who are handling this waste at the processing point. Does the law talk about their welfare? Because just talking about waste, it means that they are exposed to various hazards, health hazards, biochemical, whatever. Does it talk about the welfare of the workers in your sector? Or does the association bring in members and talk about how this is how we are going to ensure the welfare of our workers?
Yeah, this industry is very, very young. In terms of robbing, I would say that the people we are talking about are people who are doing what they are doing so that they find their meal for today. It's not about the next weekend. Just like the birds wake up in the morning to get food that they consume at that moment for that moment. That is how our industry is, especially at the lower value chain. So to answer your question, it is a big no. Talk about the government and the waste pickers and the waste processor, and then the government really is not there yet. We commend the government very much for the act, the Sustainable Waste Management Act, but it is still not enough, because implementation is really where we meet. We also call on the government to now come to the implementation stage. As my colleague said, we are eagerly waiting for the gazettement of the extended producer responsibility regulations. We don't know why the gazettement is taking so long.
2 years.
Because we invested a lot of our time, we contributed a lot in the technical committees, but the document now is done.
Let me ask you,
yes,
because you are the ones who are involved in this. Does the association and all its members fully support the gazettement of regulations?
Yes.
So there is no sabotage coming from your side?
No, absolutely. We are concerned why it is not being gazetted, because we have industry and we're working together. This is the producer responsibility organization. The producers are ready and set. And we have worked on pilot programs, and they were very successful without regulations. The producers have shown a lot of willingness to work with the waste pickers and the waste recyclers. The government gave us the policy, the act. It is in place. But we cannot implement when we lack the regulations. Now we have no communication, and I'm saying this with the interest of my members. We have no communication as regards what is it that we are waiting for. But the regulations not being there, the bottom line is you do what you sometimes, somebody can make noise, but they lack the basis to prosecute.
You can't enforce.
So issues to do with safety and occupational safety, health for our people. These people are looking for blood. They are not looking for, making money for gumboots and gloves and whatever.
Yeah.
And that is where we think that once the EPL is in place and every activity is put in the right position, then probably whatever comes in as incentives is going to help in those areas.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Richard Kainika is the Secretary General of the Kenya Association of Waste Recyclers, while James Odongo is the CEO of the Kenya Extended Producer Responsibility Association. It's an organization, yes, responsibility organization.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.